Welcome to a journey into one of the most misunderstood and controversial corners of human spirituality. In the ancient city of Varanasi, along the banks of the sacred Ganges River, where funeral pyres burn eternally and the air is thick with the scent of sandalwood and decay, there exists a sect of holy men who embrace what most of us fear: death itself. They are the Aghori, ascetics who worship Shiva in his fiercest form, Bhairava, the Lord of Destruction. Often labeled as Hindu cannibals, their practices shock the world, involving the consumption of human flesh, meditation atop corpses, and rituals that defy every notion of purity and taboo. But are they mere sensationalists or profound philosophers seeking ultimate truth? As a historian, I'll guide you through their history, beliefs, rituals, and the myths that surround them, drawing on centuries of tradition and modern observations to paint a balanced picture. This is the story of the cult of Aghori, Hindu, cannibals, and the worship of death. Let's begin at the heart of it all. Varanasi, known as Kashi, the city of light and the eternal abode of Shiva. Here, death is not an end but a gateway. Every day, bodies are brought to the Manikarnika and Harishandra Ghats, where they are cremated in open fires, their ashes scattered into the holy Ganges. Amid this cycle of life and death wander the Aghori sadhus, their bodies smeared with cremation ashes, their hair matted into dreadlocks, and their eyes burning with an otherworldly intensity. They carry tridents, symbols of Shiva, and often a kapala, a bowl made from a human skull, from which they eat and drink. To the uninitiated, they appear as ghouls from a nightmare, but to those who understand, they are seekers of moksha, liberation from the endless wheel of reincarnation. The Aghori are not a new phenomenon. Their roots stretch back over a millennium into the shadowy realms of Tantric Hinduism. They are the last surviving descendants of the Kapalika order, a Tantric Shaivite sect that flourished between the 4th and 8th centuries CE in medieval India. The Kapalikas, whose name means skull-bearers, were known for their ascetic lifestyle and extreme rituals, including carrying human skulls as begging bowls and performing rites in cremation grounds. These practices were not for shock value, but to symbolize the transcendence of duality, life and death, pure and impure, sacred and profane. Historians trace the Kapalikas to even earlier traditions, possibly influenced by the Pasupada sect, another ancient group of Shiva devotees who emphasize renunciation and unconventional paths to enlightenment. The modern Aghori sect, as we know it, coalesced in the 18th century under the guidance of Baba Kenaram, often regarded as the founding father and an incarnation of Shiva himself. Born in the village of Ramgarh near Varanasi around 1658 CE, Kenaram was said to have lived for over 150 years, dying in 1771. Legends abound about his life. As a child, he displayed miraculous powers, healing the sick and communing with spirits. He wandered as a sadhu, studying under various gurus, including the mythical Dattatreya, the Adi Guru or primordial teacher of the Aghori tradition. Dattatreya, a syncretic deity combining aspects of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, is believed to have appeared to Kenaram in a vision, granting him siddhis, supernatural abilities, and instructing him to establish the Aghori path. Kenaram settled in Varanasi, founding the Kenaram Ashram, which remains the spiritual headquarters of the Aghori to this day. This ashram, located near the cremation ghats, serves as a hub for their activities, including charitable works like feeding the poor and treating lepers, acts that contrast sharply with their macabre reputation. Under Kenaram's leadership, the Aghori formalized their practices, emphasizing the worship of Shiva as Bhairava and the goddess Kali in her fierce forms. They adopted the philosophy of Aghora, derived from the Sanskrit word meaning non-terrifying or beyond fear, referring to the benevolent aspect of Shiva that transcends horror. But what drove the formation of such an extreme sect? To understand, we must delve into the broader context of Hinduism during the medieval period. India was a tapestry of diverse spiritual traditions, from the orthodox Vedic rituals of the Brahmins to the heterodox paths of Tantra. Tantra, often misunderstood in the West as mere sexual mysticism, is a complex system of esoteric practices aimed at accelerating spiritual evolution. It rejects the caste-bound purity laws of mainstream Hinduism, instead using the forbiddance, alcohol, meat, sex, and even death rituals as tools for transcendence. The Aghori embody the left-hand path of Tantra, known as Vamakara, where practitioners deliberately engage with the impure to realize that all is one, all is divine. In the turbulent times of Mughal rule and social upheaval, sects like the Aghori offered an alternative for those disillusioned with rigid orthodoxy. They appealed to the marginalized, the poor, the outcasts, and those seeking direct experience of the divine without intermediaries. Historical texts, such as the 11th century Tantric scriptures and accounts from travelers like the Persian scholar al-Biruni, describe similar ascetic groups roaming cremation grounds, challenging societal norms. By the 18th century, as British colonialism began to encroach, the Aghori became symbols of resistance, preserving ancient indigenous practices against foreign influences. Today, the Aghori number only a few thousand, mostly concentrated in Varanasi. Though small groups exist in other holy sites like Ujjain and Haridwar. They are not a centralized organization, but a loose network of gurus and disciples, each following their own path under the umbrella of Aghori philosophy. Despite their small numbers, they command respect and fear among rural populations, who believe they possess healing powers derived from their rites. This reverence stems from stories of Aghori sadhus curing diseases, predicting the future, and even raising the dead, though such claims are more folklore than fact. Moving from history to beliefs, the Aghori worldview is rooted in Advaita Vedanta, the non-dualistic philosophy expounded by Adi Shankara in the 8th century CE. They posit that the individual soul, Atman, is identical to the universal consciousness, Brahman, and all distinctions, good versus evil, pure versus impure, are illusions, Maya. Death, in particular, is seen not as an enemy but as a teacher, revealing the impermanence of the physical body and the eternity of the spirit. Shiva, as Aghora, represents this non-terrifying reality beyond form, while Bhairava embodies the fierce destroyer who shatters illusions. Central to Aghori belief is the concept of Shava sadhana, or corpse worship, where the dead body serves as an altar for invoking deities. By meditating on decay, they confront the ego's attachments, realizing that the body is mere matter, returning to the elements. Cannibalism fits into this framework not as depravity, but as a radical act of non-discrimination. Eating human flesh is no different from eating animal meat or vegetables, as all are manifestations of the divine. This practice, known as post-mortem cannibalism, involves consuming flesh from bodies that have died naturally or been cremated incompletely, often those floating in the Ganges due to poverty preventing full rites. The Aghori also worship the Divine Mother in her tantric forms, such as Dhumavati, the widow goddess of smoke and illusion, Bagalamukhi, who paralyzes enemies, and Tara, the star goddess of the cremation grounds. These goddesses grant siddhis, but the true goal is not power but liberation. Rituals often involve panchamakara, the 5, madhya, alcohol, mamsa, meat, matsya, fish, mudra, parched grain, and maithuna, sexual union, used symbolically or literally to transcend taboos. Unlike Orthodox Hindus who avoid the impure, Aghori embrace it, believing that true purity lies in seeing God in everything, even the most reviled. Philosophically, the Aghori draw from the Upanishads and Tantric texts like the Aghora Tantra, which teach that fear of death stems from ignorance. By living among the dead, they unlearn cultural conditioning, returning to a primal state of unity. As one Aghori guru explained in a documentary, we eat the dead to kill the ego, to see that life and death are one. This echoes the teachings of ancient sages like Yanavakya in the Brihadaranyashad, who declared, "The self is indeed Brahman." Now, let's explore their daily practices, which form the core of their infamous reputation. An Aghori's life is one of extreme renunciation. They own nothing but a few ritual items: a trident, trishul, a damaro, small drum, and the Kapala skull bowl. They wander naked or clad in minimal black cloth, their bodies covered in vibhuti, sacred ash from funeral pyres, to symbolize the transience of the flesh. They reside in smashanas, cremation grounds, where they build small huts or simply sleep under the open sky, surrounded by bones and spirits. A typical day begins at dawn with meditation by the Ganges. They bathe in the river's polluted waters, believing it purifies the soul regardless of physical filth. Then comes the search for food, begging alms from pilgrims or foraging from the Ghats. This is where cannibalism enters. If a body washes up or remnants are left from cremations, they may consume small portions, cooked over a fire or raw, as an offering to Shiva. Importantly, they do not kill. Their cannibalism is opportunistic and ritualistic, aimed at overcoming aversion. As historian David Gordon White notes in his book, Sinister Yogas, this practice harks back to ancient shamanic traditions, where consuming the dead transfers power or wisdom. Meditation on corpses is another key ritual. An initiate might sit atop a fresh body for hours, chanting mantras like Om Aghori to invoke Shiva's gentle form. This Shava sadhana is performed under a guru's guidance, often at midnight during Amavasya, new moon, when energies are potent. The goal is to experience samadhi, a state of blissful non-duality, where the meditator merges with the corpse, realizing, "I am that." Substance use is integral. They smoke charas, cannabis, from a chillum pipe, drink bang, cannabis-infused milk, and consume alcohol as prasad, divine offering. These alter consciousness, aiding in transcending ordinary perception. Sexual rituals, though rare and symbolic for most, involve mathuna with a consort to harness kundalini energy, the serpent power at the base of the spine. Healing and charity are less sensational but vital aspects. Aghori run leper clinics and feed the hungry, using herbs and mantras for cures. Their ashram in Varanasi provides free meals, embodying Shiva's compassion. Yet, their methods can be unorthodox, applying human ash to wounds or using urine as medicine. Based on ancient Ayurvedic texts, controversies abound, fueled by media sensationalism. In 2005, an Indian documentary, Feeding the Dead, spotlighted their cannibalism, sparking outrage. In 2017, CNN's Believer with Reza Aslan showed him eating human brains, leading to backlash from Hindu groups who accused the show of portraying Hinduism as barbaric. Critics argue that such depictions ignore the philosophical depth, reducing Aghori to cannibals for clicks. Indeed, not all Aghori practice cannibalism. It's optional for advanced initiates, and many focus on meditation and service. Myths persist. Some claim Aghori curse enemies or perform black magic, but evidence is anecdotal. Westerners have joined, like in 2014 reports of foreigners flocking to Varanasi, drawn by the allure of exotic spirituality. However, true initiation requires years of discipline under a guru, not tourist curiosity. In conclusion, the Aghori challenge us to confront our fears. In a world obsessed with youth and purity, they remind us that death is inevitable, and embracing it leads to freedom. As inheritors of ancient Tantra, they preserve a radical path to enlightenment, proving that spirituality can be fierce, unapologetic, and transformative. Whether viewed as saints or sinners, their worship of death teaches a profound lesson. In the end, all is Shiva. If this exploration into the dark rituals and profound philosophy of the Aghori left you hungry for more forbidden history, occult mysteries, and untold tales from the shadows of civilization, hit that subscribe button now. Join the Blood Archive community for weekly dives into the macabre, the mystical, and the misunderstood. Turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your journey into the unknown starts here.